Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Monday, the 1st of July. I'm Derek Clark, and it brings me great delight to say we're joined by Jonny McFarlane at the start of the week. You've not been on for a long time, Jonny. How's it going?
Not bad. Back from the Euros, the depressing sight of Scotland trying to play football. So I'm looking forward to talking about the season ahead and positivity and hopefully a really fruitful and productive season of Scottish football.
Yeah, back to the proper football. And there's lots to talk about when it comes to all things Rangers. A bit of news today, this morning, and over the weekend, which we'll get stuck into. Just before we do that, just a quick word for our podcast sponsors, MPH Boilers. If your boiler is on the blink, folks, then these are the guys to call. They've got those wonderful Wiesmann boilers on offer. The all-important link is in the description below. Right, where shall we start? We'll start with transfer news because, of course, the rumours over potential incomings and outgoings are rife. Now, Rangers have already brought in a number of players into the building. It was good to hear from Conor Barron on Friday. You can watch his press conference in full over on the YouTube channel, folks, and you can read what he had to say to Chris and others over on the Rangers Review website. I thought he spoke very well. In terms of departures over the weekend, reports that Sheffield Wednesday are considering a move for Scott Wright. Sheffield Wednesday down in the English Championship, of course, and Birmingham City considering a move for Connor Goldson. Of course, there is Saudi interest in Goldson. Their transfer window opens up today, so that is interesting. And now it appears that Birmingham City are also keen on signing him. Now, Goldson and Wright, Jonny, I think the two of them, I've got to say, I would be surprised if the pair of them were Rangers players next season. Would you agree?
Well, I don't know about that, Derek. We'll see. There's certainly interest. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Now, Connor Goldson, we all remember that summer where it looked like he was going to leave on a free contract after, obviously, the run to Seville. And it never happened. So I'm always wary of writing off the idea that Connor Goldson's going to leave because it didn't materialise when he was available for nothing. So will it materialise now? Well, we'll have to see what happens on that front. There's certainly been a lot of chat, a lot of rumour, conjecture and discussion about interest from Saudi. And now that the transfer window has opened in earnest there, I think we're going to see how much substance there is to these reports. Because let's be honest, Derek, when it comes to the Saudis, it's not a matter of money. So I think it will be done quickly, but it won't be done at all because there is absolutely no reason why any kind of deal from Saudi wouldn't go through fairly quickly. In terms of the finances involved, will blow Goldson out the water. So let's see what happens on that front, Derek. It's going to be interesting. From the point of view of leadership, I think there'll be people that say Connor Goldson's been found wanting. I don't think he did have a good season last year, Derek. But if I'm being honest, personally, I am not sure that Connor Goldson would be the first person that I would want out the door. I don't think he had a good spell last year, but I do think that there's something there with him as a player. He has performed in the Scottish Premiership at a decent level over a decent amount of time. I think if Rangers can sell Goldson, they should. So I want to clarify that. But at the same time, I wouldn't be saying that he's a must to get out. Although I do understand that for some people, they've just seen too much failure and they want a new leadership group. And I have to be honest, from the discussions that I've had with people in and around Rangers, I would say that the feeling is I think there's that feeling in the club too. I think there's a feeling that perhaps for some of these players in the squad that the time has come for them to depart. Goldson's on big wages, Tavernier's the same, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how that pans out.
Yep. Now, of course, Goldson's under contract. He's got another 2 years to go on his deal. Similarly with James Tavernier, who's also been linked with a move to Saudi. So, as you say, Jonny, Rangers would be compensated with a transfer fee should the pair of them depart. First of all, lots of comments coming in. Johnny's in Glasgow at Rangers Review HQ. Tam says, Big G on the toilet. I've turned down his mic slightly. It's just a wee bit of an echo in the room. He's on his laptop microphone at this moment in time.
I've changed my mic. Does that sound better, Derek? Yeah,
it sounds fine here, but he's not on the bog, folks. He's on the toilet. Just to clarify, he's not in the toilet. Gary with the point just on Birmingham City having an interest in Goldson. He says, can't see Goldson dropping down to League One. Birmingham are flush with cash. They've got an American owner that's arrived there, and I know they get relegated last season, but they don't plan on staying in League One for long. It's going to be very competitive, incidentally, next season down there in League One. But they do have money to spend. But listen, it's one to keep an eye on. Connor Goldson, for me, like you say, Jonny, that leadership group that you talk about, it's time. It has been partially broken up already. We've seen John Lundstrom move to Trabzonspor, and I think the time has come for a parting of the ways with Connor Goldson and, incidentally, James Tavernier and Rangers. It's time for a fresh start. Scott Wright's an interesting one, of course. He was supposed to be heading out last summer to Turkey, and the move collapsed. I think Sheffield Wednesday, as a comment came in moments ago, would be a very good move for him. Good club, big fan base, and I can see him doing well down there in the English Championship. It's one that I can see him moving on. Again, Rangers would be due a bit of compensation. I think he's entering into the final year of his contract, if I'm not mistaken, Scott Wright. So, but there's no doubt about it. I think Rangers need better. He has contributed over his time at Rangers. But I think if Rangers want to go up to that next level and actually win the title, they need better players than Scott Wright at their disposal. Now, in terms of the incomings that have came in, few players have arrived already. I touched on Connor Barron. We've also seen Jefte, Oscar Cortez, and Clinton Enciala coming in the door. We also expect Hamza Egeman to arrive soon as well. A deal has been agreed with the Moroccan forward. Incidentally, for those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members, we recorded a great video with two Moroccan football experts last night, and they came armed with a Canva presentation as well on Hamza. I'd urge you to go and check it out, folks. It's a great insight into Hamza Egeman. But Philip Clement has been speaking to Rangers TV about the incoming so far, and about his want for some experienced players as well. I'll read you some of the interesting quotes, what he had to say. He said that we had 5 players going out of the club at the end of their contracts, and we didn't get any money in. We lost 5 players, but for the moment it was easier to get the young players, but there will also be experience coming into the building, and we need a good balance in the squad of both. It was important to find these young talents, and I think we found some exciting talents for the future of this club. They are ready to play some minutes in the beginning, but certainly in the next couple of years. Asked if the aforementioned young signings are long-term projects, he said yes, and it's something that has not been done in the last couple of years to develop young players and sell them for a better price. So a lot of players left for free, and that cost the club a lot of money. In that way, we need to get a better trading model. I think the recruitment team found a few really interesting talents for the future of this club. So that is what Clement had to say. On the first week back on pre-season training, he said everybody did their programme during the summer. We've had a good training week. We had a few guys coming back who were out for a long time, such as Ridvan and Oscar Cortez. It's important to have everyone back and to build up over the next 5 weeks to be ready directly for the start of the campaign. Firstly, we need to build their physical condition. The team missed that a lot last season. They were not prepared to play every 3 days in a high-intensity game. Because of that, we had a lot of injuries, so that was a big concern. We need to train really hard and prepare them really well, not only with ball exercises and running, but with a lot of exercises to strengthen their bodies. I guess I can say to the fans that the players will work really hard over the next couple of weeks to be stronger again next season. What do you make of that, Jonny?
Well, I don't think any of us that have been around Philip Clement in the last 7 or 8 months would be that surprised by that, Derek, because he has hinted at it before very strongly that he wasn't happy with what he inherited. I've talked to people about it in terms of from a sports science point of view. Like, what is this that Philip Clement said? Is he saying that Michael Beale was unprofessional, that the players weren't prepared properly? And what they say is no. It's you have to prepare players for a certain style of football. So if you're going to play in a certain way, you will train them in a certain way to maximise that style of football. And I think Philip Clement is more of a kind of aggressive, up and at heavy metal style of football than what Michael Beale was wanting to do, which is more maybe possession orientated. Listen, there's no doubt about it. At the end of the day, that regardless of who you blame or what's gone wrong or any of that, the fact is Rangers have had far too many injuries for so many seasons, Derek. It's not just one, it's not just two, it goes beyond that. I think it's multifaceted. Part of that is the training, part of that is the use of players. We overplay players in Scotland because there's too many games. You've got 3 major trophies to play for. At Rangers, you're going deep into those trophies, plus Europe. It's 60, 70 games a season if things go reasonably well. And that is a real burden on players. But I think larger than that, there's also been, I think, a push over the years to get in players who maybe Rangers feel they can fix. You look at someone like Kemar Roofe, we all discussed it. Looks like a really good player. Many of us had seen him under Bielsa at Leeds and thought, wow, this is a good signing for Rangers. But there's always the caveat of his injuries. And so it proved, his injuries were really damaging, and you didn't really get much in the last 2 years of his contract. But that was a gamble Rangers took. And I think we've learned and seen over time that these gambles just don't work. But they haven't worked. And it's probably time to think about bringing in players who are robust. For what is a robust league, there's no pretending that Scottish football isn't going to be blood and thunder and really, really difficult physically. And I think you need the kind of players that are able to cope with that to get through a full season. Because, Derek, you know the English Championship well from your time down south and covering these games. You know how difficult it is physically. Scottish football's actually, if you play for Rangers and Celtic, it's harder because you've got, as I say, deep runs in the Cups, deep runs in Europe potentially. So that the physicality required to stand up to that kind of 60, 70 game season is huge. And I think that's one of the key things for this squad going forward. Can Clement, through his use of squad rotation and through this hard, super challenging pre-season, ensure that that injury level is really, really down and availability is really, really up? Because that could be the difference between winning a title and not winning a title. For the last 2 years, if Rangers had their full squad, it would have been a lot closer in the league title. You've got to think about how many players, especially last season, were out for so long. And some of that was just really bad luck. I mean, Steamer and Cortez both being out. I mean, really, really, really bad luck, that one. But there's a lot of other players who are out longer term or out for periods over the time that I think also really affected Rangers, and possibly that was the difference between winning the title and not at the end of the day.
Yeah, just on the point about playing for teams in the Championship and Rangers, is also the one thing I want to see players coming in is a stronger mentality than the players that have been to the disposal of previous Rangers managers of late. There's a pressure of playing for the old firm that you don't get really anywhere else. You have to win every single game. So I want to see winners coming into the club, and hopefully the boys. Yep.
That brings it to what Clement said about bringing an experience, which was music to my ears, because I've been looking at the signings that are coming in and going, right, it's all very well going out and buying Football Manager wonder kids, but at some point you're going to need to bring in some established Premiership talent, guys who can perform at this level. Listen, no Rangers player, no Rangers kid that the club brings in is going to be more talented than Malik Tillman or Amad Diallo, right? That's just a fact. These guys are multi-million pound talents. And they came in as youngsters and struggled because talent is not enough at Rangers. You need to produce week in, week out. And when you're a young player, unless you're a Jude Bellingham, you're going to have periods where you're up and down, where you're finding your way, where you're adapting to new challenges. And that's always historically been difficult for young players coming through against Ibrox. I remember Charlie Adam. Not many Scottish players in the last 20 years have been more talented than Charlie Adam. But I remember him getting a hell of a time from the fans over mistakes and errors and loose balls and things like that. He was a creative player who had to take chances. So I was looking at the signings thinking, realistically, this is not really what Rangers need in terms of the here and now of winning. It's what they need absolutely in the long term, Derek, absolutely. But it needs to be also with some players who've been there and done it before. And it was very heartening, I think, from a Rangers point of view to hear Clement come out and say that, because they won't get anywhere with just kids. I'm going to sound like Alan Hansen here, but it's a fact. You need to be having a blend to get through these challenges that the Scottish Premiership throws up. And very important to me that they get some Scottish players coming in that can give them the kind of grit, determination and leadership through the whole team.
Yeah, most definitely. Just on the issue of experience, Jonny, one player who's been heavily linked is that of Kenny McLean. We've spoke about him on a number of shows now. I've not asked you about him. Would you be opposed to seeing him pitch up at Ibrox? Do you think he can add something to the squad next season?
Really, really good player. Really, really good player, Derek, but 32. And I have to say, like, the time to have brought him in was when he was on a free from Aberdeen. That was a no-brainer. Like, Rangers should have nipped in at that point and got him. And he's just another player that's been allowed to depart Scotland and go and create a really good career for themselves in another league. He's a Rangers fan. Don't think that's any secret. A guy who's able to dig in, but also is a goal threat, gets forward. I think Kenny McLean can be a Scott Arfield type for Rangers, but the problem that you've got there is you don't want to pay 2.5 million or 2 million or even 1.5 million for a guy who's got no resale value, who is maybe going to give you 2 seasons. Now, Kenny McLean would bristle on that and say, I can play till I'm 36, no problem. Mm-hmm. Well, it's one thing saying that, and it's another thing the reality of that situation. 32, absolutely, he'll be good for next season. But any player in their early 30s, you just don't know season to season what they're going to be like. Could be a Stephen Davis and be able to play till they're 38, 39. But I think that's a really, really big ask. But listen, Derek, sometimes you need to go out and just bring in something you don't have and pay a premium for it. And sometimes it comes back to bite you in the backside. I remember David Murray going out to get Colin Henry, because let's make no mistake about it, that wasn't Advocaat's signing, because he felt like Rangers were losing their Scottish identity. And he went out and bought the Scotland captain and Colin Henry. He paid £4.5 million for a 33-year-old who was about to turn 34. Absolutely bonkers. Now, Colin Henry was one of the best defenders in the English Premier League at the time. But it didn't really work out in the end, did it? I mean, Henry would say that he got a treble out of it, but in terms of he didn't have a long-term spell at Rangers. Listen, I think Kenny McLean's a solid player and one Rangers should be interested in, but to me it has to be at the right price, it has to make sense, and it will be interesting to see. All the signings I'm hearing, Derek, are that this is a deal that's in the post, that things are moving along nicely, that Kenny McLean is someone that we'll expect to see at Ibrox. I'm quite surprised at that, just because he's the captain of Norwich. He was the player of the year last year. I've got a couple of pals who are big Norwich supporters. They rave about him. His numbers in the Championship have been doing the rounds. He was a monster in that league in terms of winning balls for them, second balls. He learned well under Derek McInnes, and that's why he'd be so good for Rangers, because not only is he able to do that dirty work, but he's got a bit going forward as well. But there's a lot of factors in this deal, Derek, a lot to be considered, and it's one of those ones you can see the pros and the cons. I can see both sides of it. Yeah.
I think I was on with Stevie last week and he said it has to be right for Rangers in terms of the fee. Can't be overpaying for him given his age. So if it works for Rangers, then I'd be all for Kenny McLean coming in. Ian McCutcheon with a point here. He says, I think Rangers only pay $1 million for McLean. I think if it's £1 million, listen, I'd be all over that. I think that's a decent fee. Rangers need experienced pros in there, guys that will really add something to the squad. Now, he's not going to play every single week, I don't think, and I don't want Philip Clement and Niels Coppin bringing in a raft of 32-year-olds with no sell-on value. I don't think they will, but I think a scattering of these guys will be useful. We need to remember as well, and I know there's an argument to be had that they never achieved much at Rangers, but the likes of Barisic, Lundstrom, Jack, Roof have all departed the club. Of course, that's experienced pros. I think you do need some in there. Leon Balogun is one. I was all for him getting an extension to his deal. I think he'll add a lot off the pitch more than anything else. And as we touched on at the top of the show, if Goldson and Tavernier are to depart, then that's big voices in there as well. So you will be looking to bring in some proper seasoned pros, I would imagine. Now, I want to get to a few comments that are coming in here. Lots of interesting points. On the stadium issue, Jonny, Denzel with a point here. He says, can we ask Jonny what impact the delay in reconstruction at Ibrox and the subsequent extra cost will have on a transfer budget? Do you think what's happening at Ibrox will have a bearing on what the manager has to spend, Jonny?
No, I don't think so. I think it would be that would be separate. And but there's lots of different facets to this, and it depends on the moving parts. Denzel, when do Rangers get back into the stadium? If that's going to be, December, which I want to stress, I don't think it will be. I think it will be September that they get back in. But if it was the delay was to continue, there would be knock-on effects. What I would say is that you just have to play that one by ear and see what happens. I've had anyone that's done any construction jobs in their own property knows that these things can overrun. Now, I don't think that was a situation with Rangers. I think there was mistakes in terms of the way that it was managed.
Yeah.
But you can't put a time frame really on anything, can you? You've got to be kind of loose, and to me, it depends on how far it runs on as to the damage that's done. If Rangers were to end up in, say, for example, a bigger stadium than Ibrox, could it be that they were able to sell out to an extent that brought in more money than they would normally get? I think that's not impossible. If Rangers were to play at Ibrox with 3 stands, what would that mean? That would be obviously a loss of revenue, and that would be something that the club would have to swallow. So I don't think there's any easy answers. Regardless, if you were to play somewhere like Murrayfield, for example, that would involve a payment to use the facilities. So it's not a straightforward one, that, and I think it comes with a number of caveats. But normally these infrastructure projects are separate in the P&L, so I wouldn't imagine it would have much of an impact. But I suppose it depends on how long it goes on for.
If you had 3 options, Jonny, if you could play at Murrayfield, Hampden, or like you say, if I see a rumour that potentially Rangers could play with 3 stands and just close the Copeland, if that was an option, what would you prefer?
I think number one, you would want Murrayfield because you have the 67,000 there. Yeah. So the option would be you're able to sell more tickets. We know there's a lot of people on Rangers season ticket waiting lists. The problem with the 3 stands is that you've got fans that are then shut out, and I don't like that at all. That's paying customers who are desperate to be there, who should be there, who can't be. And Ibrox is it's not a bowl. That's the wrong phrase, but it's very tight, and it's because of that the noise echoes around the atmosphere. And I think with 1 stand empty, it would really, really badly affect that. So personally, I would say Murrayfield is the top bet. I think there's also there'd be a bit of excitement and something a little bit different. I know Rangers have played at Murrayfield in the past.
Yep. 100% right.
It would be difficult for some fans, but for others, it wouldn't be too much of an imposition. You go there for 2-3 games, you enjoy the facilities there, which are terrific, and then you get back to Ibrox with everything done and dusted. So that would be my preferred option. But I think Rangers have got a lot to consider, and it may be that they end up playing at Ibrox. It may be they end up that Hampden's a better option. I know for a lot of people they would prefer Hampden because 52,000 in there, and it's a stone's throw in terms of getting to it. It's not the same as, for example, it would be the harassment of getting along the M8 or getting on trains to Edinburgh and then getting to Murrayfield.
Yeah. Watch this space with regards to that. I know that Rangers released a very short, not very short statement when the fixtures were announced last week, saying they will update supporters in due course. I think time is marching on, and the sooner we get an idea of where Rangers will be playing and the solution to that, the better. Right, we'll take a couple more comments before we wrap up for the day. Another bit of news over the weekend. Todd Cantwell posted something on his Instagram, Josh. I've seen he get a bit of heat from the fan base from it. Maka with a point here. He says, "Morning, guys. After Connor Barron's comments about avoiding social media, has Cantwell's latest online spat divided the fan base even more?" So on his Instagram, he's posted like a montage of his playing last season. A supporter said, "Good to hear. Now head down off the socials and prove it." And there was another comment as well, and he sort of had a bite back at him and had a go at said supporter. It's caused a bit of noise, as I mentioned there, among supporters with Todd Cantwell. It's not the first time. Remember that the Shush Burger after the game at Tynecastle last season, Jonny got him into a bit of trouble. I can understand supporters being a bit irate about this, given that Rangers ultimately failed in their quest for the league title last season. Cantwell is someone that many supporters feel should just do his talking on the pitch as opposed to off it. We all know he loves social media. What do you make of this?
Yeah, you just can't be on social media responding to individual posts. It's just a terrible idea, Derek. And it was really good to hear Connor Barron sort of say, "I'm not on social media. I don't get involved in any of this stuff." And I would be advising, if I was his agent, or an agent in general, any young player, don't have social media accounts. Just stay off it as much as you possibly can, because especially Twitter, just completely toxic. So many, uninformed opinions. I include my own in that, by the way. And you just don't need to hear it, Derek. You just don't need to hear it. And the fact that he's responded to something like that just tells you that he's not really thought about his whole how he should be approaching social media. He's not been thinking about that properly. And listen, I just think in general, Todd Cantwell's a good player, right? I think in terms of a football player, he's got a lot of skills. But I've always wondered if he's got the right stuff for Rangers, if he's got the right mentality. To me, he reminds me a little bit of Ryan Kent. Undeniable quality, really nice on the eye, passes the eye test. If you're a scout, you're going to see him. He looks like a football player. He's got lovely quick feet, lovely soft feet, passes the ball well. He's very agile, moves about the pitch, glides about the pitch, can drift past players and stuff like that. So I can totally understand why people like him. But fundamentally, I'm just not sure the output is where it needs to be from Todd Cantwell, especially in the big games.
Yeah.
It's not terrible, Derek. It's not terrible at all. It's reasonable, his output, and I think you can make a case for him. But I think what Rangers fans want from their players, and every club has its own personality, every club has its own DNA, and I don't think you're going to win a lot of brownie points from Rangers fans with a sort of prissy attitude on social media. It's just not. It's not going to work. Rangers fans want their players to be doing the talking on the pitch, and I think that DNA even goes to younger fans as well. I don't think they want to see players that have been part of a failed team going and giving it tight back to fans who give them a bit of a hard time. It's just not. It's not advisable. It's not the way to win friends and influence people at this club. So, listen, I know you'll be getting that advice from people internally. I know you'll be getting told, Todd, for God's sake, put down the Instagram. But he's his own man, and he's got to make these decisions for himself. But Whether he will or not, it's another story. Listen, Derek, we believe that Todd Cantwell may be one of the players that's departing. I don't think Rangers would be.
Yeah.
I don't think Rangers would be closed off to the idea of Todd Cantwell getting a new club in the summer. And that's a real shame for me, because I think talent-wise he's more than capable of being a really important player in the Scottish Premiership and being a right good player for Rangers. I think he needs to step up though if he wants to make a name for himself. And there's no doubt he's got the quality. And I'll argue deeply with anyone who says Todd Cantwell's not a good football player, because he absolutely is. It's just about channeling his qualities in the right way.
Yeah.
And part of that is maybe Todd himself needs to kind of put aside some of the stuff that surrounds him, the sort of sideshow, and just concentrate on projecting the image of a guy who's absolutely obsessed with becoming a better football player.
Yeah, I know that the Norwich fans were not too happy with his social media activity in the past as well. So it's nothing new. Dental with the point. I don't care how soft his feet are. Get him off socials is what he says. Blazing Blue 72. Can you imagine Gaza playing these days in social media days? He'd be constantly in trouble. Yeah, absolutely would be. Life was much simpler back then in the 90s, wasn't it? But yeah. I think the general consensus is Todd. Yeah, just give the social media a break. But
what's your take on the Todder?
I know he's a big fan of social media. I don't mind him posting things like that, but it's like you, Jonny. I see how having a go at fans, it only ends one way. You can't have a go at supporters and individual comments that are just giving you a bit of advice or maybe having a go at you. It doesn't end well for you. So I would advise him not to do that. The Schussburger thing, I think, was ill-timed also. He has been told, Jonny, it's not the first time, as I touched on there, but he's someone that is very strong-willed, very headstrong, isn't he? And what he feels is right. But I wonder if it's a mature thing. He's still a young guy. I wonder if when he gets into his 30s, might look back and go, maybe I shouldn't have posted this, that, or the other. But who are we to tell him to get off social media? But yeah, just if I was as PA, if you like, or if I was Philip Clement, I was saying I'd be telling him not to react to individual comments. But yeah, I know that some fans don't mind what players post on social media. There's some fans that get hit up by it as well. I know that the Tavernier posted a montage as well the other day that got a bit of heat from that. I did enjoy Trabzonspor's montage of Borna when they signed him. They had a clip of him of a Parkhead game where he didn't play too well, it's fair to say. So yeah,
that's totally bizarre when you think that there's a dozen clips of Borna pinging ones in from 25 yards. Yeah. Listen, you could make Borna look like a right good player with an Instagram montage, there's no doubt, but it seemed like they were determined to just randomly pick whatever clips were available on YouTube and quickly stitch them together. And, some of them, like, ball goes to Borna goes back to keeper. It was really that horseshoe stuff, wasn't it? It was very strange.
Yeah, and there's one, I think John Lundstrom posted one from his own account. Now, of course, someone else will do it for him, but he posted that tackle at Parkhead as well, where he gets sent off, which I thought was a bit bizarre. But yeah, there you go. It'll be interesting to see how those two get on, incidentally, over in Turkey in this coming season. But right, listen, folks, that'll do us there. Big thanks to Jonny for joining us on the show, and big thanks to everyone for tuning in and for your questions as ever. Just a reminder, over on the website, Stevie's fan blog is on there to have a read at. Go and check it out. Over on the YouTube channel, for those of you that are Rangers Review Extra members, as I touched on before, if you want to learn more about Hamza Igaman, then I had two Moroccan football experts on who went into great detail about Hamza, so do go and check it out. Right, we'll speak to you again tomorrow morning. I'll be on with Chris. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Monday. Bye for now.